Is Representative Carter. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Friedloff, for being here. We appreciate your participation here. It's my understanding that the 2016 changes to the Toxic Substance Control Act state that EPA must make a determination whether the chemical substance presents an unreasonable risk of injury to health or the environment under the conditions of use. It's also my understanding that the law was not intended to be hazard-based or zero-risk one, and that chemicals would be evaluated using both hazard and exposure. And that's been mentioned in former Representative John Shimkus' law that he was the House sponsor of. But we've heard that there have been these long delays in evaluating these chemicals, and that it's detrimental to industry, and it brings about potentially beneficial new chemicals to commerce. It stops them and prohibits them from getting. And certainly we want to make sure everyone is safe, but at the same time, we want to remove as many obstacles as we possibly can. And certainly with these long delays that we're hearing about, we're very concerned about that. How is it that your office is ensuring that chemicals are evaluated using risk-based criteria and not going back to a precautionary hazard-based approach?
Thanks very much for that question. I entirely agree with you that the law requires a risk-based approach, and that includes a consideration of both the hazard and the exposure associated with the conditions of use. And I do believe that that's what our office undertakes.
Well, unreasonable risk. When you say unreasonable risk, does that mean no risk whatsoever or very little risk?
It means we do a risk assessment, we describe what we found, and we take steps to address that risk. I think unreasonable is an adjective, but it's not synonymous with no, and it's not synonymous with any. It's really, it is what the agency judges.
You sound like a politician now.
I did spend 25 years up here.
But, well, let me ask you this then. Will EPA allow the use of chemicals given an unreasonable risk determination in limited conditions of use? In other words, if there's just a limited condition where they could use it, and there's very little risk, would EPA consider allowing that?
I think we would expect to tailor our risk management decisions to address the uses that showed the risk. So if some uses didn't show risks, we would generally expect that those uses wouldn't be the ones that we would impose the restrictions on.
Well, how do you balance the fact that so many of these chemicals, and previously you were asked just before with Representative Dingell about PFAS, and we've had a lot of discussion on this committee, on this subcommittee in particular, about that class of chemicals. And as you know, it's over 9,000 that it includes. How do you balance that? Does the risk outweigh the benefit? Because a lot of them have a tremendous benefit in our society.
I honestly don't believe that we have to choose between safety and industry. I think it's the same. I think we can do both things. I think it's possible to use chemicals in a way that doesn't result in their release to our drinking water or to the air. And that's the approach that we'd be likely to take, is recognizing the benefits that many chemicals present to all sectors of society, while also protecting the people from exposures to those chemicals if they're improperly released.
But if there's a total ban and you can't use them, then we're not going to get any benefit.
I don't think anyone is suggesting that we're going to ban every single chemical that we evaluate. I think there'll be some that we might propose bans on. There'll be others that we propose fairly minimal occupational safety measures.
Well, you were here for 25 years on this committee and in Congress, and you know what the prevailing winds, if you will, right now are leading toward a total ban on PFAS, at least from Congress, from some members of Congress, I should say. And that's very concerning, because we pointed out during this debate that there are some very important beneficial uses of these chemicals.
I think we're committed to evaluating PFAS and addressing the risks that we identify. And that's our responsibility under the law. It's what the law requires of us. And we'd certainly welcome the opportunity to work with Congress as your legislative efforts move through the legislative process.
Okay, well, I certainly hope so, because I think a total ban on a class of chemicals that includes over 9,000 chemicals that have some very beneficial uses, in fact, essential uses, and in our society is somewhat short-sighted. So thank you, and I yield back.